Hi everyone, Professor Gustin here. Welcome to week number 4. We are really winding down. We're getting close to the end. So um, we have week number 4 and week number 5, and you are free, hopefully, with microbiology under your belt. But here we are with week number 4. And let's see, in week number 3, we did the lab practical, and I thought actually the lab practical went really well. There were a lot of really good grades, and a lot of people seemed to have a good understanding of what what you needed to do for the lab practical. One of the comments I got from a couple people was that you're hoping to be able to review the virtual labs again. And the way that Connect is that I can't open the virtual labs without allowing you also to take them again. And so for people that haven't taken them, they could go back and take all the old ones. So that's why I haven't just left them open. But what I do is for the lab practicals, if there's information you need from that virtual lab, I make sure I put a question or two on your lab handout. So you really should be studying your lab handout for the lab practicals. So make sure you fill in the lab handout. I did get a couple people say, oh, I felt like I needed a study guide for the lab practical. But your lab handouts should be your study guides. I write the lab practicals right from those study guides. So make sure you fill it all out. I'm sorry, when I say study guide, I mean lab handout. I write your lab practicals right from your lab handout. So make sure your lab handouts are complete and study for lab practical 2 using that. That being said, we don't have lab practical 2 until week 5, but you have a couple more labs to fill out this week. So I want to give you that heads up. The other question I get is, how do I look at my grades? And I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to tell you again. When you've completed a test, whether it's in lecture or lab, in lab it would be the lab practicals and the lab quizzes. And so when you complete those and you get a grade on it, go to the grade book, click on grades, and it will have all your tests and quizzes on there. And you'll see a little link across from the name of the test or quiz, lab practical, that says attempt 1. And so click on that and it will show you what you got wrong. I don't know, I'm not quite sure what Professor Pindell set for lecture, but for lab, I allow you to see your results or what you got wrong on the 2 minutes after the due date. So remember, our due dates are 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday or Sunday, and so I make it 12:01 a.m. on the Thursday or Monday. You can get your results. So after the due date passes, you should be able to see I only show you the questions you got wrong. And again, I do that just so people don't copy the whole test and share that. These are the kind of things you have to do in an online class. I'd like to be more transparent than that, but it's some of the exceptions some of the things I have to do in an online class to make it, try to keep it fair and limit cheating. So anyways, here we are in week 4, part 1, and we have a lab 7, bacterial growth and physiology. Some of this information is I'd say, it's some of the more higher level information, but you've talked about metabolism in lecture, and this should connect with that. And so hopefully read it carefully or listen to the videos carefully, and you should be able to understand. Here's the Word document and the PDF document. Fill one of those out. There's your links to your virtual labs. And for this week, they have some virtual labs, and we have one lab quiz. So take your lab quiz, and week 4, part 1 should look a lot like your other weeks that you've had. The week 4, part 2, let me get over there. Week 4, part 2, again, looks a whole lot like what you've been doing. But I talk a little bit more about the scientific method, and there's actually a technique you're going to be looking at some data on in week 4, part 2, that is used to count the number of bacteria. You want to know how much bacteria is in a certain food or in any kind of sample, there are techniques for counting bacteria. Now you can imagine that there's a lot of bacteria. Like you could have some food. There's a lot of bacteria. You don't want to count to 1,000,000 bacteria. You can't count 1,000,000 bacteria. So we do these dilutions to calculate the numbers of bacteria, and that requires math. And I know some of you guys are really comfortable with math, and others are need a little bit more time to process it. I give you a lot of information on how to do the math problems and a lot of practice. Two things. One, make sure that you do the first problem that I give you all the answers to on the number of cells in a colony of E. coli. If you print out your handouts in black and white, it might be difficult to see the colonies on the plates. And so what I recommend is make sure you have a picture of the actual color picture that you can refer to as you're working on that. And I recommend that if you have the pictures printed out, that as you're counting the colonies, you touch them with a pencil or a pen or whatever, and count them that way. The second thing, so one of them is try to give yourself a color vision of what that looks like. So pull that up on your screen as you're looking on your handout. The other one is that the math is a little tricky. And once you get used to it, you'll see, oh, every problem is kind of the same. There's not a lot of variation. Most of all the problems are kind of, you do them the same way. So once you get used to the math, it sticks pretty well. But a lot of people, when you're in a rush and you're frustrated and you've got a half hour to finish this lab before the due date, it's hard to figure out, get math done that fast, or hard to think of something slowly and concentrate on it when you're in a rush. So give yourself enough time to do the lab from week 4, part 2. Do not wait to the last minute, because you're going to find it really frustrating. Okay. On the lab practical in week 5, I try to give you some just to the, did you understand that technique? Can you do the basic math? I don't try to give you the trickiest things, but you should know how to do those math problems. If you have questions about that, let me know. But let me know before the due date. And I promise you, I will not be looking for questions at 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night before you're finishing this. So try to do it like at least a day early, that I can get answers to your questions. So there are some couple virtual labs and a lab quiz on all that. So give yourself time for week 4, lab 2. All right. After this, you'll have week 4 under your belt, and I'll meet you in week 5, and we'll wrap up the course. You guys take care.